Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Super Nintendo Entertainment System All-Stars Marathon, or SNES Superstars. Did I say All-Stars? Start again. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the SNES Superstars Marathon. We've got 11 days of speed runs for you. We have over 200 runs by, I think, 160 different runners. We're going to be streaming all through the day and all through the night from now until the Monday after next, the 20th of March. Our first run in the marathon is going to be Secret of Mana, being played by Crow. We've got Yagamoth on commentary here with us. And we're going to see the one-player run of this game. A little bit later on in the marathon, we're going to see a two-controller run, but we're going to start off really simple now with just one controller. I'd like to thank everyone for showing up and getting in here on the ground floor.
I can't believe you got the name of our marathon wrong.
I can't believe it. Well, that's right. I'm going to edit the VOD. I'll cut the VOD right there at the start.
Okay, that sounds good.
No one will even notice. But anyway, I think we're ready to kick this off. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our first runner and commentator, Crow and Yagamoth. Take it away, guys.
Hello. So I am Crow.
And I'm Yagamoth. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening.
And I'm excited to bring you a one-controller speedrun for Secret of Mana. Secret of Mana is an action RPG by Squaresoft. It didn't necessarily sell very well in the States, but it does show up pretty frequently on top 10 best games of Super NES lists and that sort of thing, so it's a pretty fun game.
Did you start your timer?
Yeah, Yagamoth here holds the world record for the multiple controller runs of this game. This run is a one controller run. I do hold the record for that, and that's what we'll be bringing to you today. Yagamoth will be doing a run that is multiple controller on, I think it's Tuesday? Is that right,
That sounds
Yagamoth?
about right, yeah.
Okay. So there are a lot of significant differences. If you've seen a marathon run of Secret of Mana before, you have probably seen a multiple controller run, where every time a boss fight starts, what you see is weapons being swapped and then maximum damage being dealt to the boss repetitively. In one controller, we have access to a lot of the same sorts of glitches, but as a general rule, I have to interact much more with my AI and with the enemy's AI in order to pull it off. So, in some cases, this will actually mean that it's faster to use magic instead of weapon charge glitch hits. And in some cases, I'll be using both magic and weapon charge glitch. So, just visually speaking, as a viewer, you should see more variation from one boss fight to the next.
Don't forget to start the timer.
Oh, I did forget to start the timer. This means the timer is right about 1 minute and 40 seconds off, I think. Oh well. Okay, if you've seen me stream on my channel before, you know that missing splits is commonplace for me. You see almost as many missed splits on my timer as ones that I actually got. Okay, so at the start of the run here, we have the Raybite Forest. Yagamoth, could you explain how leveling up weapons works and the Raybite damage rolls?
Sure, we can do that. So, at the beginning you have some Rabites. Those are the weakest enemies in the game. They have 20 HP. A regular swing most of the time does 18 damage, so you need just 2 more damage to kill them. And Crow kills some of those Rabites, not entirely sure how many, in order to level up the weapon. The sword he currently has is the Mana sword, but it's just a rusty little weapon right now, which he needs to upgrade later in order to level up beyond just level 1. So right now he is at level 0, leveling towards level 1, and weapon levels are very important to be able to use throughout the run for various glitches and really high damage in the end.
Right. So I am killing a couple fewer Raybites than I normally do, or at least that was the plan. I wound up getting a optimal pair of Raybites showing up near the bottom that just grouped up, and I just took the kills. But I will, for marathon safety, be killing the goblins near the rope chest in Gaia's navel. Normally those enemies take longer to kill than Raybites, since Raybites are the easiest enemies in the game. And as long as you're not over-leveled compared to your targets, you get the same amount of weapon experience regardless of which enemy you kill. But coming up here is the Mantis Ant fight, which is the first boss of the game. It's a tutorial boss, so even if you die, the mysterious man who is in the bar will actually revive you. I swung too early there. There are various smart ways you can try to fight the Mantis Ant. For the most part, it turns out that it is faster to just bum rush him from the front, though. You can alternatively attack him from the side and let him swing first, dodge the attack, and then come in afterward. But as long as you time your attacks right, which I did not for a couple of the swings there, but the rest was good, then you just trade hits with him, and that's faster than waiting around to not take damage.
One thing I would really quickly like to mention, Fiesel said, let's start it off simple with the one controller category. Interestingly enough, I dare to say the one controller category is more difficult overall than the two controller one, just having played both for that matter. So this one is actually going to be highly technical, and I think we are going to get a good idea and impression as to what is going on in the one controller category.
Right. There are some glitches that in order to do, you need to use two controllers. And commonly, if Yagamoth, for example, is doing a one-player, two-controller run, he will be holding two controllers at once, which sounds difficult, but most of the time you don't need to use both controllers. He'll just turn it on for the duration of some glitch, and then do it, and then it'll move on. Since I can't do those glitches, I wind up needing to use a larger number of total glitches, but each individual one is just not quite as good as what can be done with multiple controllers. So that's why I'm going to wind up needing to interact with my AI characters that are supposed to be allies but are actually incredibly stupid. And then also the boss AI for some of the bosses, they'll actually get an opportunity to act, whereas for the multiple controller run, you can often dodge that. So I'm starting the out of order early game here. This is going to be a kind of long series of confusing events that the eventual upshot of everything that I do here is simply going to be a faster Midge Mallet. I will have the Midge Mallet by the time I enter the underground palace. But what I did was I saw Gemma enter the water palace, and the first thing you're supposed to do once you get out into the world here is visit the water palace and go through a rather long cutscene that explains what's going on in the world, what your objectives are, all that kind of thing. And they send me off to Gaia's navel, which is where I'm going now, in order to get the sword upgraded. Since I saw Gemma enter the water palace, that got the canon travel guy to allow me to go to Gaia's navel. And now I'm going to start this glitch here, which will allow me to swindle the swindler, and I guess I'll have Yagamoth explain what's going on here.
Indeed. So, swindling the swindler, Nico, is the cat here, and he always asks for double the price. So what Pro does initially is he takes or buys 2 items. First a candy and then a medical herb. Then he opens up his regular inventory, puts the cursor over the second item in his inventory, and then closes that inventory again. Sells both of the items back to Nico, and then the game still remembers that the cursor was on the second item in his inventory, but there are no more items to be displayed. So then he goes into the buy menu and back out of it, and the game remembers, wait, I just had those items displayed. And what ends up happening is Crow is enabled to sell quite literally nothing, which is worth about 30,000 gold each, back to Nico. What he also does simultaneously is he does an extension of that glitch by filling up the first 2 item slots with glitched items. Those are called black items, and then he will gradually remove those black items from his inventory by selling them a multiple of 8 times, like he does here just now, and then he buys new fairy walnuts. What that means is he actually is filling up his inventory with multiple stacks of fairy walnuts. Ordinarily, you're only supposed to have a maximum of 1 stack per item, and only a maximum of 4 items in your inventory. So he bought 2 of each of those items and now has 3 stacks of fairy walnuts and a ton of money to boot with. So that is going to be quite handy for those. What did I miss?
Alright, so now I'm entering the cave proper. I just realized that I intended to make a safety save before entering here, but I did not. Hopefully that won't be a problem. I am going to be killing a couple of goblins that are guarding the rope chest, which is the usual only sticking point in this cave. And since I'm actually killing them, that should be safer than if I would just try to grab the chest and run, which is what's usually done in the 1 controller category. The multiple controller category for this game needs to get more weapon experience because it, in order to do the trickier version of the weapon overcharge glitch, it needs to get 2 weapon levels on 1 weapon and 1 weapon level on another. The 1 controller version of the glitch, and you'll start seeing that glitch at Spiky Tiger, so we'll explain it then. But for now, suffice it to say that I only need to get up to weapon level 2 with the sword, and that will be enough for me to use that glitch once I reach Spiky Tiger. For now, I have just gotten weapon level 1 on the sword. You'll see me use the weapon charge level as intended during the Tropico fight, which is coming up shortly here. But first, I need to do some shopping and another glitch. The original reason that the plot told us to go to Gaia's Navel in the first place was to go to Watts here and get the sword upgraded. So now the sword is up to level 2, which means that I can now start progress towards level 2 experience as well. I will also do some shopping. The dwarf village has the by far best equipment of the early game, including the power wrist accessory that increases your attack damage by 5. This game's accessories all have some special property, and the game does not really tell you what those are very well. But I'm also going to be buying a bunch of more equipment than what is actually required, and I'll let Yakimov explain what I'm going to be doing with the excess equipment here.
Alrighty, with the excess equipment, Crow is going to execute what we generally call equipment trashing. So what he's going to be doing on the screen is he will equip an armor and then throw it away right away afterwards. But he does that by standing in a very particular place on the screen, which essentially tricks the game into using the wrong memory addresses in order to throw away those items. So I'm not particularly good at explaining this, but the short version of what happens is the game tries to unequip the equipment piece before deleting it, but for some reason it does that wrong, and uses different values that kind of look like the boy has certain items equipped. For example, if you have 2 candies in your inventory and stand on that specific spot, the game thinks the boy kind of has that item equipped and removes the 2 from the items, which means it decreases by 2. So he does that a few times and decreases the amount of items he has in his inventory by 2 each. So ordinarily, you cannot have the items still displayed in your inventory and then be at 0 amounts. So he now has 0 fairy walnuts, 0 candies, 0 barrels, 0 medic herbs, etc. in his inventory. And whenever he uses one of those, it will basically wrap around from 0 back up to 7. And what that essentially means is each of the items in his inventory he can use up to 8 times, which is very convenient and also way faster to get that instead of doing the ordinary buy 4 of each item.
I can also do that further on in the game, so if I need to restock, for example, my fairy walnuts during a boss fight, I can do that. Once I go down to 2 fairy walnuts, I can do the glitch again, to once again bring myself up to effectively 8, which is what I now have in each of those slots. So this is the Tropico fight. He's supposed to burrow back down after each time you hit him. And I think I just messed up there, so he's probably going to start doing that properly now. But if you have perfect timing with your attacks, then you can generally get 2 hits per cycle. Looks like that's going to happen again here. Whenever I charge up my attack to level 1, which I have plenty of time to do between each cycle, I deal 50% more damage than I would if I just used a basic attack. Whenever I do the weapon charge glitch later, I will be using very high level attacks, and basically it's just, for every additional charge level I get with weapon overcharge glitch, that's another 50% of my base damage that gets added to it. This also applies to magic, which I'll be using a fair amount in the run. Every time you level up your magic, you increase the amount of damage by 50% for each level of the magic. An amusing detail earlier was that the sprite presumably had a 50,000 gold debt he was working off. That, of course, was just a sham, but since I glitched my way to having a fortune, I can actually, I could have paid that off trivially, whereas the game would think that 50,000 gold is absolutely ludicrous at this phase in the game. So I just got the sprite in my party. I choose a 1-character name, first of all because it's faster to enter, but also the text in this game is displayed 1 character at a time. So if you have a long name, it actually adds up pretty quickly as far as how much time the text takes over the course of the game to show your name. And now I'm going to do the equipment trashing glitch one more time. And this time I'm pointing the memory to a spot that corresponds to the weapon inventory rather than the item inventory. So what I just did there was I caused the sprite to, as far as the game is concerned, unequip his sword. So now, as far as the game is concerned, no one has the sword equipped, which means that the boy has no reason not to be able to equip it himself. So as soon as I do that, the boy will also have the sword equipped, and then I'll just have 2 swords. So there we go. Now I have 2 swords. Now I'll use the magic rope to get out of the cave. You cannot use the magic rope in the room where Watts is. That's the only reason I went into the stairway at all. And now my quest is to reach Elena's castle while also gaining as much weapon experience as possible. I will try to give as much experience as I can to the sprite, since he has less weapon experience than the boy. Also, since the sprite's experience level is lower than the boy, whenever I kill, for example, the flowers here, if the boy kills the flower, he would get only half weapon experience. But if the sprite kills the flower, he gets full weapon experience, simply because the boy is over-leveled compared to flowers, whereas the sprite was still level 1 at that point. Coming up here is the werewolf fight. It is a serious pain if you don't know how the game works. It can still be a serious pain even if you do. But what I want to accomplish is this. I want to get both of the werewolves grouped up and under attack at the same time. Then I press select, switch to the other player, and I attack right as they come out of hit stun, and I just repeat that from opposite sides until they die. There's still a chance that they can cure each other. There's nothing you can do to stop them from curing if they decide to do that instantly. But overall, that should keep me safe from any damage as long as I time things correctly. I will equip the girl here. It's actually very important that you have some sort of equipment on every character, because if you don't, then you don't have a full evasion rating, and this game scales the effectiveness of your total defense power based on your evasion. So simply having something equipped, even if it's just a basic wristband, winds up decreasing the amount of damage you take by a humongous amount compared to what would make any logical sense. So at this point, the game is fairly certain that you have done all of the very early game things. It's sure you have the girl because I had to go through the werewolf fight. It's also certain that I have the sprite because the sprite is a prerequisite for having the axe, which I used to smash those statues. It is actually possible, and if you see a multiple controller run of this game, you will see that you can skip getting the girl at this phase in the game and just get her later. However, having 3 characters winds up being a huge convenience for a lot of the early game bosses, so I want to have her now. Coming up here is Elena's castle. This place is a serious pain, and frankly, if a casual player gives up on this game, this is usually the dungeon where they'll do it. A lot of players have just obtained the girl at this point, and your only source of curatives is Neko, who charges double for everything, and there's no inn around, so every time you get a character dead, you have to farm 300 gold before you can get yourself back off the ground. This room is annoying because there's 2 werewolves. I think I've got through. Okay, cool. Werewolves are... They attack very fast, and they move very fast as well, so... since I have to scroll the screen up towards them, I don't get too much of reaction time, so that's why I kind of just start swinging the sword before they even reach the screen. And hopefully I can push them both out of the way, as I did, and now I'm heading towards Spiky Tiger. Spiky Tiger has a lot of things going on during the fight, so... I think I'll let Yagamoth start talking about it already, because there's just so much, so...
Well then, already. So, let's start off with, first of all, Crow is going to be using a barrel during the fight against Spiky Tiger. Barrels are really crazy powerful in this game and deflect any attack that is not straight up magic. And Spiky Tiger, you ordinarily, most of the time, just uses everything physical, so this sprite will be fully protected. On top of that, like Crow earlier alluded to, he's going to be using a charge attack, but he's going to overcharge that attack. So first of all, he's going to tell the AI control character to charge up his sword to level 1, And then he tells the AI control character to charge up his sword to level 2, which, if you notice at the bottom of the screen, the bar will immediately snap up to level 2 of the charge attack, instead of slowly charging up like it normally does. And then he will tell the AI control character once again to only charge up to level 1. Then you will see the bar at the bottom freak out, and that is when every other frame the charge level of the attack increases by way too much. So, what then happens is he just unleashes the attack and one-shots the Spiky Tiger.
So here I'm stuffing the mouth of Spiky Tiger with the barrel. Unfortunately, if Spiky decides to jump to the high ground, that decision is unaffected by the barrel being right in Spiky's mouth. So I now just have to wait for Spiky to come down to the ground. I don't really have any influence over that. Spiky can stay on the high ground however long he wants. As soon as he decides to stay on the low ground one time, that is enough time for me to set up the overcharge and then kill him. There's two ways for me to release the overcharge. I can either use the targeting command that is in the special menu, the same menu as like the status screen and the equipment and whatnot, or I can just press the select button, which is what I did there. If I use select, I can swap to the voice control, then the game sees that I'm not holding the B button, so obviously I should immediately release the charge attack. That works as long as the boy is already facing towards the enemy, so I just need to react to what has happened in the fight. So now, we have forced Elen to stop being an evil witch, and if you read the text there, you would find out that the reason that she became evil was because the herbs in her forest withered, so she was selling people to continue funding her herb habit. So, yeah, pretty dark game. Anyway, at this point, the game is going to tell me that the Water Palace is having trouble and that I need to go rescue Undyne from the waterfall behind the Water Palace. But because I did the early game slightly out of order, now is when the game starts getting a little weird as far as the plot is concerned. Undyne is not in danger right now, despite the fact that she should be. The issue is that since I never completed the Water Palace cutscene before, Undyne did not get initialized properly, so right now I just cannot enter her cave and deal with that issue. I can, however, enter Pandora and then do the Water Palace cutscene, which is what's about to happen here. Whenever I enter Pandora briefly, that will cause the game to cause the girl's friend Fauna to start wandering around in the town like a zombie. Another thing that affects Fauna is whenever you complete the Water Palace cutscene, the game tries to initialize the position of Fauna, but since I will already have moved Fauna outside, this will move Fauna further one more step. And this will move Fauna from the town to being right in front of the Pandora ruins, ready to let me into those ruins and let me complete that section of the game early. I will eventually need to complete the entire game, even though I am doing some sequence breaking. Alright, I don't need to go that far. I accidentally showed you Fauna. I did not need to do that. Just entering the town was sufficient. So now I do an about face, and I head back to the Water Palace, and I complete the cutscene that I was supposed to have completed right at the start of the game. As an amusing detail, if I had talked to Dialux soldiers at the start of the game, then you would see the girl rescue the girl from goblins whenever I exited the Water Palace. If you're confused as to why you're not seeing the boy get kidnapped by goblins like you remember happening as a kid, what makes you either get kidnapped or not is whether you talk to the troops before you enter the Water Palace. Since I did not do that, I don't have to deal with that cutscene.
So, real quick, I would like to point out to people who may not be familiar with the game, Undyne is the spirit of water and gives you water magic. Well, and she was in trouble. Other than that, also the magic rope places you at the beginning or the entrance of an area, if the magic rope is usable. And last but not least, the whip, weapon that he just got after defeating Spiky Tiger, that is the intended use to jump across those gaps where he jumped through the shortcut and basically emerged right in front of the Water Palace earlier.
Yeah, that use of the whip is how it's supposed to be used. You will see uses of the whip poles that are not at all intended for most of the other times I interact with them at all. But we'll deal with that when we get there. There are 8 elements in this game, and supposedly your primary task for most of the game is to go to all of the palaces for each of the elements and seal all of those mana seeds. And the game is trying to explain that to me here. Supposedly I already knew it before I went to Spiky Tiger and whatnot. Alongside each of the palaces, there are also 8 elemental spirits, and those spirits teach the sprite and the girl some spells. 3 spells for each character for each element. At this point, I'm supposed to get the spear, but because I have... no, that's not the file I want to save in. There we go. Because I have already obtained a spear orb, the game thinks that I have already obtained the spear, so I'm just never going to have the spear ever. The spear is actually a pretty useful weapon as far as hitboxes and special effects go, but I will not be touching it because I can't. I'm eventually going to want the sprites to participate in the weapon charge glitch for later bosses in the game that I won't be able to one-shot. And in preparation for that, I'm going to be periodically killing weaker enemies as I pass by them with the sprite. And the boy just got stuck on a Raybite. A large part of how you get good instead of... how you go from good to great in this game is getting used to how the AI works. Trying to get them to not get stuck on corners, because if you play this game casually, you know the terrors of an AI getting stuck on a wall and making you not able to progress until you backtrack a lot. Or getting them stuck on enemies, and then the enemies wreck them, all that. You will occasionally see me messing up over the course of the game. I will do as much as I can to prevent that, but every once in a while I will be taking some hits. Since I have decent armor, it's not a huge deal if I take some damage, but I want to avoid that because each time you get hit, you have to wait for a while. So there's 2 enemies of interest here, and I just messed up my dodge on the first one. The Doom Sword, or whatever it's called, is invincible while it's on its stand and doing the initial animation, so that's why I can't just hit it and then move on. I tried to go underneath it and then gather the party to the side, but my main character that I was controlling wound up taking a hit while I was trying to do that, so I wound up getting slowed down a bit. Didn't wind up getting stuck too long, so it's no big deal. The other thing I did was I dashed diagonally at the start of this room here. The game tries to predict which direction you're going while you're scrolling the screen, and it will... Oh, I got the slow down spell cast, which is like the nightmare of a speedrun. Anyway, yeah, whenever you scroll the screen, the game tries to spawn enemies in the direction you're moving. But if you move diagonally, oftentimes the game messes up and just fails to spawn enemies that are in your path. This prevented a Tomato Man who would have spawned additional zombies on top of the stairs from showing up. So I was able to just go straight down the stairs without having to deal with him. Here, though, is the wall face fight, which has a few interesting details, and while I focus on this, I'll let Yawgmoth explain some portion of them.
So, first of all, what you would like to know about the wall face is the middle portion is what you want to hit in order to defeat him. And more importantly, the wall face is the first boss in this game who has an evasion rating. So, roughly 40% of the time, the wall will just straight up not take any damage at all from Crow's attack. And, well, there's nothing much he can do about that, it's just pure chance. Also on top of that, I think he just killed both eyes, which initiates a special phase for the wall face, which ordinarily you want to avoid. It's not too bad on this guy here, but on the second wall, he definitely wants to avoid that at all costs, which I think is not too difficult in the one controller category. Either way, he executed the fight actually pretty well there, and the wall face got defeated in 2 hits. He got a low damage roll even though he hit the middle portion, so it did not actually deal enough damage to one-shot the wall face. So the maximum damage you can deal is 999 minus enemy defense, which means if he rolls a low damage roll on top of that, the wall face has just enough HP to survive pretty much any attack. So less than 50% of the time, even if he hits the wall face, he will one-shot it in this case. So what did I forget?
Yeah, the game intends you to have not 1 but 2 elements of magic by the time you enter this particular dungeon. And they just conveniently make this boss weak against the most recent elements you had learned. So if you do, for example, a glitchless run of this game, then the way you beat Wallface is you use magic and you just one-shot him before he has any opportunity to cure himself or anything like that. If you run out of MP and you're not using glitches, then it is actually quite difficult to defeat Wallface before he either just starts healing faster than you deal him damage, or he crushes you into the spikes at the end of the room, which is what he was trying to do once I killed both of the side eyes. So the next task is to head to Kilroy in Gaia's Navel. By defeating Wallface early, I have accelerated the rest of the events of the early game, where the Water Palace seed gets stolen. You go chase down the people that stole it, you retrieve the seed, and you return it to the Water Palace. That is my ultimate goal. I want to return the seed to the Water Palace, which will advance the Water Palace's state enough that I will be allowed to enter Undyne's cave, even though the event that originally was supposed to make Undyne be in trouble never occurred. So Kilroy has a few irritating details. First of all, he can dodge just like Wallface can, so sometimes when I attack him, it's just not going to work for no apparent reason. Also, Kilroy's attacks can turn characters into Moogles. So if he does a spinning attack, that will hit the boy, and that if that happens and the boy gets turned into a Moogle, the boy's charge attack will be reset. and I will need to start that over again after using a medical herb to cure the Moogle status. So, depending on random luck, it is possible for me to wind up losing a bunch of time here. But otherwise, it's a fairly straightforward boss. Pretty soon I'll have access to magic, and then bosses will get slightly more interesting. Because I'll be mixing that in. So I use a barrel here. If Kilroy does a directional attack like he did there, then the barrel will keep the girl safe and keep the boy spared. Alright, got that, and let's see. Nope, was not able to reach the exit in time. If you step on the exit tiles right as the boss fight ends, you can skip a portion of the boss end animation. So, that winds up saving like 2 seconds if you pull it off. Not a big deal either way, but I did not reach the exit tiles in time. Very minor glitch here. I'm going to use the magic rope and then touch these tiles. This causes the screen to transition a little bit faster. It also causes the music to be wrong. I'll be using that glitch again in a little bit in order to move the Undyne conversation back a little. And each time I do a minor glitch like that, I'm saving a minuscule amount of time, like 2 seconds or something. But as with any speedrun, all of the instances of saving 1 or 2 seconds adds up over the course of a run. I have just gotten level 2 sword experience onto the sprite, so I no longer need to kill the random enemies around here, and the sprite can now participate in the weapon overcharge glitch anytime I want him to. The first time I plan on doing that is during the Boreal face fight, which is not for a while yet. So for a while, it's just going to be the boy doing physical attacks, and the sprite will soon have some magic to work with himself. So I can either deal with Undyne or deal with Jabberwocky first. Either order works. I'm going to choose the technically slightly slower order as a matter of safety. I am going to go to Undyne first, so I have magic, so I can use that magic to hold Jabberwocky in place. This is a little bit slower than doing it in the other order, simply because once I defeat Jabberwocky, some of these Ifitch disappear, and then I won't have to deal with them anymore. So this is the Biting Lizard fight. That Tonpole is supposed to transform once he takes a certain amount of damage. I, however, am going to be one-shotting him, so we will not see that particular transformation. Ironically, the Tonpole form of that boss is probably more dangerous than the Biting Lizard, because if you just stay still, most of the time the Biting Lizard will not actually attack you at all, because the Biting Lizard tries to walk close to you, but it only attacks if you're on a vertical or horizontal line with it. So if you stay still, most of the time it will wind up on a diagonal with you, and then will just stop moving, and then it just sits there and does nothing. So here I have moved the Undyne conversation to the entrance of the cave using the magic rope. And now I have Undyne's powers for the sprite and the girl. They make up some lame excuse for the boy, saying that eventually the Mana Sword will be more powerful than any magic, which I guess is technically true, but magic is still super awesome. If you play this game casually, you probably just defeat almost everything via magic, because that's just the easiest way to kill basically everything. I will allow the boy to take aggro here, and then I'll charge on forward. This sets the charge flag for the boy, which is how the game keeps track of whether the AI is trying to charge its weapon or not. The game still remembers this, even though I'm currently controlling the boy. So as soon as this fight begins, I can press the select button to swap off of the boy, and then the boy will immediately start charging without me having to walk into Jabberwocky. Jabberwocky is actually kind of dangerous if you let him actually do things, so I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that he doesn't get to do anything. So I'll use freeze to hold him in place for a little bit, wait for the boy to start being ready for the overcharge, and now I'm going to do another glitch we call charge retention. I got it, but I didn't wind up needing it. Instead of using the targeting command or just pressing select in order to release the charge attack there, I swapped from the sprite to the boy while also immediately pressing B afterward. And doing that allowed me to release the attack with the boy, and also hold on to the overcharge for one more attack. So even if Jabberwocky survived the first hit, which is possible, either because he dodges it or I get a low damage roll, I would have gotten a second try at the overcharge. It only works twice though. If he survived 2 hits via a dodge plus a low damage roll or some combination of those, then at that point I would have to start dealing with Jabberwocky's AI. Jabberwocky has 2 heads that do physical attacks. Those physical attacks can inflict the unconscious status on you. He also has 2 very damaging spells, Poison Gas and Acid Storm. Coming up next will be a brief visit to the Upper Lands, but my main objective right now is not the Upper Lands, but instead to head back to Gaia's Navel so that I can pick up the Midge Mallet and also Gnome's Magic. This is the final payoff for doing the early game out of order. I have basically completed all of the dungeons, or at least I soon will have, from the early game. I just did them in a different order, so that I could visit Gaia's Navel after I had already visited Jabberwocky. So once you defeat Jabberwocky, and then the Midge Mallet becomes available in Gaia's Navel from the Dwarf Elder. And the Midge Mallet will allow me to cast magic much faster. It turns out that Pygmead characters, and the Midge Mallet alters whether you're Pygmead or not. It either cures Pygmy or it inflicts it. But Pygmead characters cast magic way faster than non-Pygmead ones do, which makes some boss fights safer, and it makes many boss fights faster. Okay, so unfortunately I was not able to use the cannon travel to go straight to Gaia's Navel, because once you clear Jabberwocky, the Gaia's Navel cannon travel destination got replaced with the Upper Lands. It would have been way nicer if they replaced the Water Palace destination with the Upper Lands, or if they did what they did in Kakara and gave you 3 choices. But I can still get there. I just have to do multiple cannon travels for each trip. Okay, so pretty soon I'm going to be going into the Underground Palace. There's a few dangers there. I think I'll let Yakumoth talk about them while I focus on not dying.
Okay, sounds good. So, with Undying Towel, he can now use her magic in order to open up that Earth Palace. Otherwise, well, he couldn't do that before. Also get the Midge Mallet, as he explained here. And now, what he is going to be doing is he is going to try and sneak past various enemies which are actually quite dangerous if they catch you. So, especially the goblins, they like to, each individual one of them, just attack fast enough that your characters can get stun locked for an extended amount of time, and they can just get stuck there and killed straight up, as in basically combat to death. you do not really have much, if any, invulnerability frames whenever you get hit. So enemies can just hit you over and over again until you're dead if you get caught. So that's also why they can be quite dangerous. Other than the goblins, which by the way are by far the most dangerous enemies in here, because they can throw range projectiles, and as I think Crow likes to point out pretty often is, boomerangs that they throw are really, really dangerous if enemies use them, although if the player uses them, they are mostly some of the weakest weapons. Well, most of the time. Other enemies are the chess piece monsters, those little horses, whatever you want to call them. They can attack you if you let them enough time, but if he is just executing well enough and sneaks past them, they are not usually much of an issue. So I think you just reached the little cutscene.
I have used Midge Mallet in preparation for this fight because I am going to defeat Fire Gigas with the Midge Mallet, with magic. So the Midge Mallet will make that faster. Also, the cutscene runs a little bit faster if the sprite is pygmy, because the pygmy character's attack is also faster. So I will chain cast freeze. Something that most players figure out at some point during their playthrough is that if you use another character to command the sprite to cast spells, then the sprite gets to cast spells way faster than he otherwise would. Normally the game puts a cooldown after you cast a spell that you're not allowed to bring up the menu or control the character. But you can still cast another spell during that cooldown if you have a different character command the first one to do the spell. That actually doesn't even matter whenever I use the Midge Mallet, because among the cool features of being pygmied is that cooldown literally doesn't even exist. Not only does the spell come out faster, but if I wanted to, I could even have had control of the sprite, and I would only have lost a frame or two each time I needed to bring up the menu. So here we get Gnome. And then after that I'm going to seal the Mana Seed. Sealing this Mana Seed is not technically required, but if I don't, then I cannot level up my magic any further. Each time you seal a Mana Seed, you get Mana Power. Mana Power increases the damage of your high damage rolls, both for physical attacks and for magic. And it also increases the maximum level that you can get for your spells. Just like the weapons, every time you use a element of magic, you gain experience for that element, for that character. So eventually I will be leveling up the sprite's Sylphid magic up to level 4 in order to deal with the Northtown Ruins bosses. In the meantime, I will have to use Freeze to deal with the Pebblers, because the Pebblers are strong against Gnome's magic. And I will also be using Gnome against Springbeak, because trying to hit Springbeak with the overcharge attack in one controller is incredibly annoying. It's possible, and it is like a 20-second time save if I can pull it off. But if I mess up, it usually winds up costing me like a minute and a half or something, so for a marathon that is definitely not a good risk-reward ratio.
Indeed.
So,
on top of that, I would also like to point out that you also simultaneously level up spells for later use, so I think it's not necessarily relevant for this category.
I just took a wrong canon travel destination. It's not a big deal in this case. There are other canon travel errors that I could make that will cost a significant amount of time. Here, it's just a question of whether I wind up coming into the Potos field from the south or from the west. The west would have been better, but here I'm going to be coming up through the south. So you will see me use the little, I think it's called the High Stepper, It's the thing that is supposed to be a spring, but it looks like a chick or something. So I'm going to be using that, and yeah, this little critter here turns out to be important for skipping the Pure Lands in the multiple controller category, but we use a different method in the one controller category. We'll be using a whip pull in the Lofty Mountains. Okay, so now I'm heading to the right place. The difference between going to Pandora and going to the Water Palace is probably like 15 seconds, maybe even less there. I haven't actually timed out the two paths.
I never
So
actually
before-
considered going from Pandora, whether that would even be faster. Oh.
Yeah, I'll have to pull out a stopwatch sometime. So before I can fight Spring Beak, I first have to deal with the Pebblers. The Pebblers are blue hedgehogs that are definitely not copyright infringing. And as far as normal enemies in this game are concerned, they're probably the most complicated AI. They have many different actions they can take, and for a lot of the time that they are active, they are invincible. And even when they are hittable, they frequently just dodge your attacks anyway. They have the same evasion rating that bosses do. So, I don't think I've listed the numbers yet, but whenever you attack a boss in this game, or anything with an evasion, as the game progresses, the amount of time that the frequency of them dodging your attacks scales from about 40% near the beginning of the game to about 30% as the game ends. Every enemy that has an evasion rating of about 99. There is one enemy that has an evasion rating of 95. So I've now started the infamous 4 Seasons puzzle. This puzzle, I think, made a lot more sense in the Japanese version. I don't know if it was a translation error or a cultural misunderstanding, but this square that I'm in right now is spring, and when they tell you to walk the seasons from spring to winter, spring again, and we can enter, they're trying to tell you to walk the 4 seasons in order. And then, once that happens, this path up here that previously was blocked by some water becomes available. Also, I'd like to point out to Yagamoth that I got silenced like 2 seconds after the start of a room where there are no enemies that have the silence spell. That's why I just suddenly turned around. The silence spell in this game inflicts the confusion status, because that makes sense, and that reverses your controls. Like, even your controls in menus get reversed. It's a serious pain. You also lose the ability to cast spells on the silence. I am casting my spells in a particular order here. I am casting Gem Missile as my second to last spell in each set, because doing that causes me to gain NP from my walnuts faster than I otherwise would. The duration of the second to last spell that you cast, the duration of the animation, winds up being what determines... Oh, he was dead. Huh, okay.
What did I up there?
I actually am quite confused as to why he died at that time. Maybe he was like 2 HP from dead, and while he was jumping, he got punched by the sprite or something. I'm actually not sure why Spring Beak died at that particular time. Secret of Mana is a game with many glitches, and we will very frequently just be playing this game and encounter something we've not seen before. One thing I like to say frequently, and I'm not sure if it's 100% true, but often it feels like whenever we are playing the game and trying to play the glitchless category, we wind up finding more new glitches than whenever we're intentionally hunting to find new glitches to try. That's just how glitchy this game is. Grandpa is going to give me Sylphid, first of all, which is the main element I'll be using for most of my magic damage throughout the game. And he also offers to save the game here. I will go ahead and do that, just for safety, because it's already along the way. I'm then going to use the rope and then talk to the seed from above. If a seed is spinning because its seal has been broken, you can talk to it from the side. If it's not spinning, then you can talk to it from above, but in order to do so, you have to face away from it. I'm not exactly sure why it works that way, but it does, so I'm not complaining.
I think it checks proximity and character facing direction.
I guess so, probably. There's a silktail that was hiding in the trees there, so I just altered my path mid-dash in order to get around it. When you start a dash in this game, your direction is actually locked in, and as soon as you stop dashing, or you want to change directions or whatever, your stamina goes on cooldown, and you have to wait until you've charged up again before you can dash again. One way that we sometimes get around that is that we will swap to our allies, and after you dash, your allies actually do not spend stamina when they try to dash to your position. That's just a convenience that they gave you. The boy got knocked unconscious, but whenever you do a screen transition, the game heals all hard crowd control. Silence remains, but, actually, come to think of it, it's almost only unconscious that gets healed from a screen transition, because engulfed certainly stays. I think there's probably... I'm actually not sure on petrified. Do you know, Yaga?
I don't know about that one either, but I think the other ones all stay.
Okay. Got stuck on that shot again, which means that I'm not sure which enemies are going to show up here. This room is actually kind of tricky to get past. I got lucky and none of the crawlers showed up near those mushrooms. Getting all of your AIs past those mushrooms is a little tricky. They tend to get stuck on it. That pebbler there behaves in the same sorts of ways that the boss pebblers do, and you can tell what they're going to do based on just looking at them, and whether they're walking or spinning in place or whatever. And then I can use that in order to determine what I need to do to get by it safely. So that time I was able to sneak by. The owls are frequently casting silence on my party members. If an owl is trying to attack a party member that is inflicted with silence, then it will become massively aggressive and it'll attack like 6 times a second or something ridiculous like that. Nope, too early. I'm doing a cute little trick with the crystal orb here, if Yagura wants to explain what I just did there.
So, okay, crystal orbs, whenever you activate those, you need to normally just use a specific spell on them in order to activate them for a passage opening here, for example. But what the game actually does is it checks as to which spell has been cast the last. from the specific character. So because he casted a Thunderbolt on the orb, and then subsequently started casting a Earthlight, which is the required spell, the game just kind of accepted, okay, you just cast Earthlight, so that must be what hit the orb just now. And so it accepts basically the Thunderbolt as a Earthlight.
And the only thing I got out of that long explanation of arcane glitch is I got to get one more practice cast on Thunderbolt. So that's kind of the nature of speedrunning. Trying to hunt down arcane game features that will save you a second or two here and there. So this is the Great Viper fight. Great Viper likes to troll me by running off screen. If Great Viper is not on the screen, then I cannot target him. So far, he's cooperating. Hopefully, it will stay that way. I'm also controlling the girl and using the whip to occasionally get a little bit of extra damage, but it's a little difficult to do that because the Great Viper tends to just change direction abruptly. Great Viper is actually the last enemy that does not evade. So if I successfully land an attack on him, a physical attack, it will hit, as long as I hit the head, of course. Because he jukes around so much, I do not consider it particularly safe to go for a physical attack only kill on him, because you need to land 2 overcharge hits to make it die, and you just don't get to hold it down very much. It will always slither around, and it's generally hard to get your AI to hit it. I think Yawgmoth, when he goes through this category, usually does use a weapon charge glitch against it. Is that right?
Because my main element, I use Gnome for Earth Magic, and so Great Viper is pretty resilient against Gnome, so I tend to just try to land 2 overcharge attacks, which can be tricky against that boss, to say the least.
Right.
But Gnome can also use slowdown, so it's not all too bad, but this game is really difficult to run with just one controller, I can say.
Yeah. Every element is in a pair, so any enemy that is weak against one element is strong against the reverse element. So Gnome and Sylphid are opposites. So since the Great Viper is weak against Sylphid, that means that if Yawgmoth is using Gnome as his primary element that he's going to be leveling up over the course of the run, then that means that Yawgmoth cannot easily deal damage with magic, so that pretty much forces him to just deal with the AI of the enemy there. So there I had a choice of either going to Kakara or to the Ice Country. I would like to go to the Ice Country first and then Kakara, but unfortunately, the game arbitrarily blocks you from going to Kakara from the Ice Country until you have completed the Sand Ship event. So that's what I'm taking care of now. I will also set the boy back to his sword and to charge up in preparation for the next boss. Once I reach the next boss, and there's going to be a bunch of plot before then, but Mech Rider will be defeated using a combination of magic and the weapon overcharge glitch. Ideally, anyway. If the overcharge misses, then I'm going to be using just magic, and that's just going to be a much more stressful fight, because there will be a lot of misses. I'll explain that once we get there, but first, we have a sand ship. The party gets split up. The commander wants the girl to give him a massage. They, for some reason, assign the sprite to the kitchen, which turns out to be a very poor choice, and you are sent to the engine room, where apparently your job is to wander around and look at boxes and barrels. I talked to Sergo a couple times here. He's a pirate, and I complain that I want to leave. So Sergo agrees to pretend that there's a fire, which is sufficient to create enough confusion to get me through here, assuming the guards don't block the path, which they did not. Thank you. And then there's another guard that can troll me down here. I'm going to meet up with the sprite. Once I retrieve the sprite, I'm going to try to exit the room again. Unfortunately, if the guard wants to, he can just block the entrance down there and prevent me from exiting. That did not happen this time, so that's good. Regardless of how much MP the sprite had entering this area, whenever the party gets split up and then re-merged, they do give you basically a free in. So the sprite's back to full MP. Now, in preparation for the next boss fight, I'm going to go ahead and pygmy the sprite. It'll take the game a little while to apply the pygmy, but it'll be done by the time I start the fight itself. This is also our first introduction to Tasnica versus the Empire. We've been generally fighting against the Empire for a while, and they're just the generic bad guys. They're trying to unseal all the mana seeds. Tasnica is the Republic, and they're, I guess, the good guys, but they seem to be fairly incompetent. They also have a sand ship, for whatever reason, and that's what we were just on, and as soon as they encounter the Empire, all the troops just try to immediately surrender. So, I'm not convinced in the competency of the Republic, but they're what we have. Fortunately, we will be skipping the rest of the Tasnica subplot as the game progresses. But for now, I need to hope that this hits. Alright, okay, good. Compared to the other spells you've seen me cast up to this point, Thunderbolt, which is Sylphid's high damage spell, unfortunately has a very short animation. This gives the boss time to act in between my sets of spells. The first time you attack Mech Rider, he casts Speed Up on himself, as you saw, but then if he survived the boy's attempt at a weapon overcharge glitch, he would have counterattacked subsequent Thunderbolts by launching missiles, which deal huge damage. And now it is time for me to do some shopping, and I'd like Yagimoth to explain what I'm doing here.
Alrighty, the upcoming section is going to be the Ice Country, where there are enemies, blue wolves, they are called howlers, and they are crazy aggressive and hit you pretty much all the time, at least once throughout this entire Ice Country area. And he equips better equipment for that area specifically in order to increase the defense by quite a bit of, well, his armor, so he does not take nearly as much damage. If you get hit for, I think, more than 25% of your maximum HP, you get knocked down to the ground, and that takes a significantly longer time to recover from than when you don't take as much damage. So, buying new armor, and I think you also do equipment trashing here?
Yes, I'll use the chimney here to line up an equipment trash like I did in the dwarf village. I'm also casting Ice Saber, which will cause any enemies I attack to have a very high chance of being turned into a snowman, which is harmless.
Real quick, also something to note for anyone who missed it earlier in the run because they have not been here. Equipment trashing refers to the technique of equipping an item and then literally just throwing it away in order to in short, multiply the items in your inventory to just kind of restock without having to buy them. And so far, that looks pretty good. So as I said, those wolves have crazy attack range. They are really fast in attacking and really aggressive too. So this is pretty much the most difficult area to do well in, and also highly random as to whether you can get through this smoothly or not.
Ah, messed that one up. I forgot that I had the girl selected there. I'm not supposed to. The girl's whip has a minimum range for its attacks. If you attack an enemy too close, then it won't hit them. That actually has more repercussions down the line. I walked strangely in that room I was just in order to get the howlers to generally despawn. The game only allows 3 enemies to be alive at any time. Oh no, I hit Boreal face a little early. This is the first boss where I'm going to use both the sprite and the boy for weapon overcharge glitching. I'm using a barrel on the girl to distract the pumpkin bombs out of Boreal's face. Okay, my barrel just disappeared, so that tells me that I did actually land 2 hits on Boreal's face, and that was sufficient to kill it. So I did basically one-cycle Boreal face, it's just that I messed up his first appearance. So, overall, that was a pretty good Boreal face fight, and not that bad of a trip through the initial phase of the Frosty Forest either. The Howlers are probably the hardest normal enemies that we encounter during the run. Metal crawlers are worse, but outside of glitchless, we should not be encountering those. So my next split is called Who Needs Christmas? I know you can't actually see my list of splits, but what's supposed to happen at this phase of the game is I continue forward along the ice country in order to obtain the Fire Palace Mana Seed that Santa Claus had stolen in an attempt to grow the largest Christmas tree ever and restore faith in Christmas in the children or something like that. Turns out that the Mana Seed turns him into a monster called the Frosty Gigas, and then once you defeat the Frost Gigas, he turns back to normal. You've saved Christmas, and then you take the Fire Palace Mana Seed back to the Fire Palace. We're not actually going to save Christmas. We can let some other Rankin Bass character deal with that. Instead, I'm going straight to the Fire Palace because, technically speaking, the game does not cause the Fire Palace Mana Seed to be stolen until you reach a particular room in the basement of the Fire Palace. We can use a trick we call barrel launching, which I thank Yagamoth 1,000 times for finding, in order to just fly up the ramp. There was a way to go up the ramp and thereby skip the Ice Palace without using the barrel launch I'm about to do, but it was by far the hardest trick in any category of this game, to the point where I basically did not want to do speedruns of this game for a while, primarily because I didn't want to do that trick. Now the trick is super easy. So I'll go ahead and let Yagamoth explain his barrel launch.
Okay, make sure you have enough barrels in case it fails.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Alright, okay, barrel launching. So for whatever reason, whenever you get healed while you are in a barrel status, the direction you are currently traveling in gets just kind of locked in, and you just keep traveling in that direction while you are repeatedly just, well, essentially moving in that direction really fast without ever getting stopped. That includes the ramp in the fire palace, which ordinarily you can slide down, but you cannot go up, as in the game just pushes you faster than you can run up the ramp back down. So what that does for you now with the barrel technique is you cast your barrels on the sprite and the boy, heal everybody with the girl, and then also put a barrel on the girl right before she finishes her spell cast, and then you just hold up as soon as you select the girl, and then everybody just flies up the ramp without ever getting stopped by the ramp's, downward conveyor belt mechanic. I'm not sure how you call that.
Yeah, that exit ramp is supposed to be a one-way trip out of the palace if you want to exit early, or as a trap if you don't remember that that's where that ramp is. And then you exit and then you find out, oh, I have to go through the whole palace again. That's annoying.
Yeah.
I actually messed up the glitch the first time. I accidentally barreled all 3 characters at once instead of having the girl use cure water at first, so I fixed it by exiting the palace and doing one more equipment trash to restock my barrels. So now I should be good to go with barrels for the rest of the run. I've been having some trouble with this glitch here. I'm trying to use a whip pull to walk through walls, but sometimes the boy just doesn't want to go through, and I'm not sure why. I've been having trouble with it lately, but yeah, I'm just gonna go through normally.
Yeah, it can be super finicky. It would save you some time if the AI cooperates, and also the enemies for that matter, because they need to be standing in specific positions and not hit you preferably.
You'll see more whip pull assisted walk through walls later on in the run, so don't feel too gypped. You'll still get to see that trick eventually, just not right now. Coming up next is Minotaur. Minotaur is another boss that is weak against Sylphid, and there's yet another boss that is weak against Sylphid later on, so that's why I've chosen Sylphid as my primary damage dealing element. Let's see. I do have basically full walnuts right now. And I just need to wait. I mentioned during the Spring Beak fight that I was casting my spells in a certain order in order to get my MP restored faster. Unfortunately, Thunderbolt is such a fast spell with its animation that I do not get the fast MP restore until I reach level 2. Level 2 and 3 Thunderbolts have shorter animations than the level 0 and 1 or the level 4 and 5 animations. Sorry, longer animations. So level 0 and 1 have only 1 Thunderbolt, level 2 and 3 have 2 Thunderbolts, and then 4 and 5 again have only 1 Thunderbolt. And this winds up being the difference between whether I can chain cast or not. It's also the difference between whether I get the fast or the slow MP restore. And the combination of those is the difference between bosses getting an opportunity to act in between and them not being able to do that. So now I have sealed the Fire Palace Mana Seed. At this point, the game inexplicably allows me to go on to the Empire. I think this is a good time to mention that the game was originally being designed as one of Squaresoft's flagship demonstrations of how awesome the SNES CD add-on was going to be. That project fell through because of some corporate drama, and eventually the developers, Sony, decided to make their own console, and that seemed to work out. But that meant that a lot of the originally planned content in this game kind of wound up getting scrapped. So you can tell as the game wears on that eventually they're just kind of stringing together the most important elements of what they had originally planned, Whereas in the early game, there's branching plot lines. You can kind of do things in whichever order you want. And if you just look at the world map, the initial area you start in is just incredibly dense, and then almost everything else is gigantic sections of forest or whatever. So anyway, now that I am in the Empire, I need to get from Southtown, which is where I am now, into Northtown, and I'll do that by going through the sewers. You're intended to give the secret password to the guard. I still need to get the secret password, because if I don't, I will later on not be allowed to get the gold tower key. So because of that, I will be talking to Mara right now. And then after this, I am going to try to sneak past the guard, which I have. And now I don't even need to worry about the secret code. I can also sneak past the guard in the same way I snuck past the guard in Matango by mashing the select button while walking through him. And I'll describe some more implications of that once we reach the Metal Mantis skip, which is after the Northtown ruins. For now, these blue drops were supposed to be enemies that I recognized from the Ice Palace, but I skipped that dungeon. The blue drops can inflict the same snowman status that I put onto the howlers in the Frosty Forest, so I'm having some trouble getting the girl around this corner here. The AIs really like to get stuck on the corner. So the way you get through this room here with the blue drop right next to you and looking super scary is you just walk diagonally down and left, and then you press select repetitively to get your entire party to walk down, and as long as you do that, you just sneak on by. That room actually used to be really troubling, and another trouble with that room is that if you have a character that is snowman, well, who is turned into a snowman, whenever you enter the cutscene I just went through there, then the game soft locks. This happens with either the boy or the girl. The sprite's actually okay. But the issue is that during the cutscene, the character is expected to do some animation, but the snowman doesn't have that animation, so it doesn't happen. I'm going to go ahead and sleep in the inn here because I need to heal up anyway. But mostly I want to make a safety save because dying in the Northtown ruins is not out of the question. The third to last, I think it is, room in this dungeon is one that I'm going to be kind of winging it during. It's just a very large room, and there's a couple of imps, and the imps have a huge number of actions they can take. They can throw a trident, they can breathe fire, they can cast one of two spells. And depending on what they do, sometimes getting through that room is very tricky, and sometimes it's not too hard at all. This cutscene here, with Fana, can actually be skipped for now. You can use the same barrel launching trick that I had done to get up the Fire Palace ramp in order to fly up these stairs without triggering Fana. Unfortunately, I cannot actually get out of this dungeon that way, because while you're barrel launching with an AI character, you cannot scroll the screen. So I will give a, one sentence or so description of what I'm doing in each room, because most of the rooms of this dungeon have a kind of preset strategy for how you get through it. So this first room, I will shift a little left so I don't get hit by the wizard eye near the exit. This next room, I will dash along the east wall, which will usually keep me safe from the ghouls. This room, I walk instead of running, because if I run, my AIs will get caught by those beams. This room I just get on by without crashing into the bats. This one I go along the right side because that's where a green drop is, and the green drop is the same enemy from the early part of the game. So it would not deal me any damage. Red drops are from the Fire Palace. We didn't see any, but they inflict the engulfed status, which is really bad. The room I just went through, I scroll the screen up before the blue drops attack so that the blue drops can go through their full animation properly, and then I dash on by. This one I just dash along the bottom. This room here, I am going to have the sprite stun the enemies with magic. I'm using Thunderbolt just because that's the element I want to practice. Any spell would do. I then push the button that the blue drops were guarding and go on by. In order to get back through this room, I kind of have to gather the party on the right side and then dash up. This room, I need to be moving diagonally from the very start. If I start by walking either left or up, then there will be a robin foot on the path that I just walked through. I press the button, which lets me through here. I dash along the top side in order to not get hit by the red drop. All of the drop enemies tend to hit underneath them more so than they hit above. This one, I attack both the imps to make it less likely that my party gets wrecked by them. This one, I tried to attack the ghoul, but failed. And this is the tricky room. I need to get all my AIs past this bend. Now I go over to this button, and meanwhile my AIs are just going to be playing with the imps, and I'm going to hope that the imps do not win. Eventually I need to get through the door, and now I did. And that was the dangerous room of this dungeon. Nothing else should really be all that dangerous.
And real quick, I would like to point out the blue and the red drops are being avoided because if they hit you, they have a very high chance of crowd controlling you, which just stops you for a long time, or you need to use it in medical or to get rid of the crowd control.
Yeah, I've already burned through quite a few medical herbs from the Matango Cave because I got a lot of silences cast on my party members. And it's not particularly convenient for me to try to restock my medical herbs. As a general rule, it is much easier to restock using the equipment trashing glitch. The items that are near the start of your inventory. So even though the inventory is displayed as a ring, there is a distinct starting point as far as the memory is concerned, and that winds up being important for deciding what gets restocked and what doesn't whenever I do the equipment trash. What I never want to do when I'm trying to equipment trash for more items is I never want to equipment trash and cause something that is at 3 item uses left to go to 1 item use left. That situation becomes very hard to deal with because I pretty much just need to visit a shop in order to get any of that item again. The next boss here is Vampire. If you've seen a multiple controller run of this game, you probably remember this as being one of the 2 worst fights in the game by a significant margin. Vampire can stay just flying in the air in his troll cape, and as long as he's up there, he is invincible to physical attacks. This does not affect magic, so frankly, this is one of the biggest reasons why I bother leveling up any of the magic on this sprite. I want to be able to beat this boss without needing to use weapon charge glitches against him. If I get an opportunity to, I will try to get 1 weapon charge glitch hit against him, but this guy has like, what is it, 2,400 HP? Something like that? Something huge for this part of the game. This boss was probably intended for a later part of the game, but got transplanted, that's my guess. So it just has a really high HP count, and I'm going to have to cast a lot of magic before it goes down. even if I get a weapon charge glitch, it's still going to be a lot of spells I have to cast. Okay, so the pygmy should take effect at the same time that I get my MP, and then it's back to spellcasting. Right now, Vampire is just hovering in the air, so no weapon charge glitches for me yet. Air Blast is a projectile spell. If I can, whenever I cast Air Blast, I want to have the projectiles hit Vampire right as they come out, because if they don't, then they'll wind up wrapping around, and it just takes a while for them to hit, and the sprite doesn't get to act again until all of the projectiles hit. Another irritation of this fight is that Vampire covers up the elements a lot of the time. So normally whenever I'm trying to time my spellcasts to be as efficient as possible, I am usually watching Sylphid in this case, or Undyne if that's the spell I'm casting, or whatever, and I'm watching the animation, and as soon as that element's animation is done, that's when I pause the game to start casting the next spell. Whenever Vampire covers it up, it makes timing a little harder. So coming up is the Metal Mantis skip, and I am going to intentionally kill off the girl. That is my next objective here. So whenever a character is dead, the ghost can always can always walk through NPCs. Specifically, what's going on is that the ghost never has its weapons out, and for example, in this town here, if one of my AIs got blocked by an NPC, they could just walk through the NPC with impunity. Whereas hey, Armored Man, please attack. I don't want my allies to start attacking. Oh, that's a pain. They did. Unfortunately, there's no way for me to get Boy to drop aggro now, so he's going to be slowing me down as I continue this glitch. Anyway, the next part of the plot is supposed to be a very Final Fantasy VI style take truce with the Emperor, and the Emperor sets up a banquet for us. We show up at the banquet, and he throws us all in jail. That much is a little different from Final Fantasy VI, of course. He then throws us in a arena with the Metal Mantis, which he, for some baffling reason, thinks will kill us. We're just going to avoid that entire situation, and the way we're going to do that is by walking through guards that are preventing me from accessing the rest of the dungeon here. So I'll walk the boy up here. I will trigger the sprite's attack. I was trying to avoid letting the sprite take aggro in order to avoid this, but here we are. Okay, so I used the questionable AI for pathing in this game in order to get the ghost to try to form up with the boy across the wall, and then that moves her above the guards, and then I revive her once she's past the guards, and now I am through the rest of the castle here. Whenever you reach the rest of the castle, there's supposed to be a lot of enemies here. there's Embermen that we had these cool strats we called clap strats against. We had these long debates about whether it was better to go through the ninjas or around the ninjas, but all that's gone now because the enemies don't show up while the palace is in banquet mode. So now I've reached the final boss of this castle, and now I will defeat it with a mixture of magic and physical attacks if I actually have MP. At this point, I need to form up the party down here. This boss has trouble attacking my party whenever they are on the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to use that in order to make it more convenient for me to set up the weapon overcharge glitch. And hopefully I'll be able to beat him this way rather than needing to use more spells. This is Mech Rider 2. He has basically the same irritations as Mech Rider 1. And in fact, he has basically the same magic resistance Mech Rider 1 did, so that's why he got obliterated by just a little bit of magic and then one physical attack. So now I'm going to get Flammy, who is way cuter than an airship, but as far as standard Squaresoft logic, that's basically what he is. And with this, I'm going to gain access to the majority of the world, and I can now complete the rest of the game in pretty much whatever order I want, because I know how to walk through walls. So, first up, I'm going to do some shopping. I'm also going to talk to an old man in this town. Talking to that old man is a prerequisite for getting the key to enter the Gold Tower. The equipment here is supposed to be inaccessibly expensive at the point where you first get Flammy, but back at the beginning of the game I manufactured my own money, so I have no particular difficulty buying it. In particular, I'm going to make sure that the girl gets the unicorn helm, because it increases her magic stat by an additional 5 points. The Vazuri ring also increases magic for both the sprite and the girl by 5 points. So I get to just do a bunch of swap dashing here, switching between different characters as I dash in order to get around the stamina cooldown. Now I talk to the old man up here. And then I'm going to make a corrupted save file. After the corrupted save file, I'm going to do the wall glitch. And I will need to focus during that, so I'll go ahead and let Yawgmoth start talking here.
Alrighty, sure thing. So, wall glitch sounds kind of like you would be walking through walls. However, in this case, this is actually slightly different. What he is going to be doing is, he is, in short, going to cast spells at enemies that cast wall on themselves. Wall is a protective spell that bounces back spells to your opponents, or if the enemy casts them and you cast spell on them, they bounce back to your own characters. So what Crow is going to be doing is he will bounce spells off enemy walls to kill his own allies. The reason for that is because he wants to kill his characters in order to trigger what we call the wall glitch, and that just gives you the amount of experience, the total of amount of experience that the characters have earned this far into the game. Like all the bosses combined, how much experience it is. Modulo 65,535. Don't know what that is, don't worry about it. Either way, he will generate a tremendous, insanely ridiculous amount of experience just by killing off his own allies in that way. So he lets himself get hit a few times in order to make sure that the characters actually die. Then, I think he is going to kill off, or aim to kill off, the girl first, in order to trigger the wall glitch on the girl, and so the sprite and the boy get experience from killing the girl, actually. So what that does is the girl will then subsequently have, the boy will then subsequently have basically just as much experience as you can get, and that experience then gets added when he kills the boy instead to the total pool of how much experience he will gain from killing off the boy repeatedly. So what he then does is he actually uses the Mitch Mallet in order to prevent the game from noticing that the boy actually got killed. So what he does is use the Mitch Mallet on the boy, then he revives the boy via the use of either a Royal Jam, which can revive a character from 0 HP as long as they're not said to be dead yet, and then he uses the Mitch Mallet on the boy as well to just kind of be able to cast multiple spells and bounce them back to the boy. Also, you may notice he has positioned his party in a very peculiar way that allows him to make sure the bounced off spells off the enemy walls get bounced exactly back to the boy instead of anywhere else. The reason for that is because the wall bouncing back effect can only happen within a certain radius, and he is essentially with the girl and the sprite just far enough away in order for them to not get hit by the spells that bounce back, but the boy indeed does get hit by the spell because he's just a little bit further towards the end. And, well, he's already done with that, and that was pretty efficient actually.
Keep going. This is another high focus section of the game, so.
Alright.
And you're doing great.
That was the wall spell. And real quick to close off the wall spell, he gains that ridiculous amount of experience and levels on the sprite and the girl, because that gives them a lot more power for their magic spells, on top of also increasing their maximum MP pool so they can cast more spells before he has to replenish it. And here, he attempts to have his AI-controlled characters walk through walls towards the top platforms. So ordinarily, obviously, you cannot walk through walls. However, AI-controlled character, for some reason, if you target an enemy via the target command and then hit a rope pole with any weapon, like the sword here of the boy, he just kind of, well, managed to walk through walls, the AI that is, because they can do that for some reason. The short version is rope poles allow you to walk through walls as long as you hit them with any weapon, but ordinarily you cannot move while you hit a rope pole with any character. Also, this is another fun one. He just pygmies the girl right there in order to have her, still with the whip equipped, just attack an enemy at the rope pole, but essentially he attacked the rope pole right next to him, which is not supposed to be hittable, since the whip weapon ordinarily only has minimum range, and the rope poles right next to him cannot be hit with the whip that, well, because it has a minimum range. But if you pygmies the character, the game still sees, oh, you're standing in the correct position and you have the whip equipped, so let you jump in that specific direction through the wall. And that's how he just basically jumps straight up through the wall as well. So, also, in the end there, he just did another glitch on top of that, where he used a level 1 sword charge attack in order to just straight up jump through the wall, where you are supposed to complete the Temple of Darkness, the Temple of Light, which is the Gold Tower, and also the Moon Tower and the Tasnica Sapa. By just doing this little jump, he completely skipped those sections, although he will go back to the Gold Tower in order to acquire certain magic anyways. But it's just faster because he's already here to do this and jump through the walls in order to, well, get to this challenge here, which allows him then subsequently to enter the Tree Palace, the Dryad Resort, and continue to plot there, basically through a huge skip. That's a lot of things.
Okay, so this is Jock's trial. Presumably at this section of the game, you're supposed to be ferrying between Jock and the rest of the world while he tells you things you need to do in order to be ready to face Jock or whatever. Jock's Trial is kind of a thing like the Paladin class change in Final Fantasy IV, where you're supposed to face your fears and let the enemies kill you, and then that's how you pass the trial. So every time one of your characters dies, the corresponding doppelganger, which is called Shadow X, the corresponding one for that character disappears. And this is the intended way to go through this section of the game, but a casual playthrough will at this point have Gold City equipment, which basically makes you invulnerable to those enemies. So in order to actually take damage, I had to use the Midge Mallet. Among the good things that Midge Mallet does is it reduces your defense power by 75%. That was why I was able to kill my girl off more easily during the Metal Mantis skip, and it's how I killed my party off there. It turns out that killing off your party is a very essential skill in this speedrun, and I'll be doing it again a little bit later, but first I need to get through the Gold Tower. Because of the huge list of glitches that we now have access to, I could actually complete the game without getting either Lumina or Shade into my repertoire of spells. However, I still want Lumina, because if I don't have that magic, then the Buffy fight in the Mana Fortress with one controller is a 10-minute fight. It's that ridiculous. So rather than dealing with that, I am instead going to complete the Gold Tower, which it turns out is faster than dealing with the Buffy fight without it. There's two bosses in the Gold Tower. One of them is Blue Spike, and the other is Gorgon Bull. Gorgon Bull, conveniently, is weak against Sylphid, which I've been practicing all this time, so the sprite will be able to completely obliterate him. The other boss is Blue Spike, who operates a lot like Spiky Tiger, and unfortunately, Blue Spike has a chance of soft-locking the game. So I'm going to use a trick that is technically slightly slower than the other way to clear this dungeon, in order to just walk on by and not deal with Blue Spike at all. So I just did a save warp where I used the corrupted save file that I made, and I made two corrupted save files actually, one that had the Gold Tower key and one that did not. The save file that had the key first entered the area. Then I switched to the file that did not have the key. And if you don't have the key, but you're in the Blue Spike fight, then the game erroneously has the stairs still there. The reason that those corrupted save files are corrupted is that I landed in those in the square with Neko and I did the save without having walked into the room. The game saves where you walk into a room, not where you're located when you make the save file. So those save files do not know where they are. So if you hold LR select start in order to do a soft reset, you can load a file that has a corrupted save, and it will put you into whichever room you most recently entered. So that's what I did to switch first to the older file and then back to the new file. And since I skipped Blue Spike, I now have to defeat Gorgon Bull twice in order to convince the game that I have completed the Gold Tower. There's just one variable that keeps track of how far you are in the tower, and by doing this I have completed as much progress as if I defeated both bosses. Instead, I just beat the second boss twice. And that should bring us to now. I am also going to seal the mana seed that is here. I don't really need to do that, but this increases my mana power, which does increase the damage of my Lucent Beam spells I'll be casting later. Lumina has spells, and I'm actually going to be casting all 3 of them. At this phase in the game, you get Lumina, and you get Shade, and Sprite is the only character that gets any magic out of Shade, and the girl is the only character that gets magic out of Lumina. Okay, so let's do rope, mallet, mallet, mallet. Oh, that cancels the rope. I probably should have known that. Oh, that's right. Now I remember. This is the disadvantage of doing the blue spike skip. This right here is why this is not part of the world record run route, and this is why it's only part of the marathon route, where I'm trying to avoid a possible soft lock. Because I save warped into the gold tower, the game did not know the destination for the magic rope, because I, technically speaking, never entered the gold tower at all. So because of that, I had to walk out rather than just using the rope. And now it is time to deal with Lumina. Well, I'm going to use Lumina to get Luna. It was probably not a good choice by the translators to go with Lumina and Luna as the 2 names for 2 different elements that the girl will be using extensively, but that's how it is. Luna gives the Sprite MP Absorb, which if you're playing this game casually is super awesome and allows you to just stay out and about without any worry about running out of MP ever. Let's see, no, I don't think I can use a walnut just yet. I'll use walnuts now, I guess. That should be fine. So you need to have Luna in order to get Luna. And again, Luna is optional, but having her makes the Mana Beast fight much faster. And there's almost nothing to do in the Moon Palace, so it takes very little time to get it. So I might as well. I have pygmied my characters in preparation for the upcoming watermelon fight, where my goal is to die. This glitch I'm about to use is a combination of my efforts and Yawgmoth's. I first found a way to use a trick we call the Santa Shield for multiple controller runs, and then Yawgmoth pointed out that it actually works for a single controller run as well. So if you remember back, maybe, 30 minutes ago or something, we elected not to save Christmas, so because of that, the Ice Palace, which is here, is not a dungeon that we have cleared yet. The Ice Palace has a strange feature where if you die inside of it, then instead of game overing, Santa kicks out the party, revives the boy, and says, "Scram!" I guess it's because Santa is too nice a guy to let you actually die in his house or something like that. But because I never completed the dungeon, that shield still exists when you're in it. The shield is supposed to go away once you exit the palace by walking out of it. But I never walked out of it. You're not supposed to have Flammy anytime that dungeon is a dungeon. So I have flown out, which means I still have Santa's Game Over shield. And so I will use that in order to die to Igagropolon here without Game Over. Sometimes dying here takes a little while. Please kill me, please kill me, please kill me, squish me. Arg! Well, as soon as he's done casting spells, I'll be dead. Unfortunately, sometimes he's chain casts, but fortunately he casts wall, so we are all good. Scram! All I want for Christmas is an extra life, apparently. So, why did I want to lose to Watermelon? Losing to Watermelon caused Sheeks, who is the guy who turned into Watermelon. Oh, his technical name is Igagropolon, but come on, what kind of name is that? Whenever I lost to Watermelon, that caused Sheeks to still just be chilling in the Tree Palace interior. So I am going to get characters in cutscene mode now, and when a character is in cutscene mode and the event system is on, you're allowed to walk through walls. Let me talk about that in more detail, because that's kind of a confusing statement. Right now, I have reset the game and I'm starting over. This is part of the run. In order to scroll the screen during these cutscenes, the game actually has the boy in your party, and that boy is in cutscene mode. He's invisible, and he's allowed to walk through walls as long as the event system is active. Whenever you save warp into the waterfall scene at the start of the game here, all of your characters get put into cutscene mode. The girl and the sprite will then promptly leave cutscene mode because I just revived them from death. But the boy will remain invisible, and as long as he is invisible, I will be able to walk through walls with the rest of my party whenever the event system is active. So I'm going to trigger the event system by talking to Sheets inside of the Tree Palace interior here. Normally, talking to Sheets in the geometry that I actually want would be impossible, but as long as the character is in cutscene mode and you are facing left, you are inexplicably allowed to talk to that character from any distance. So, did not do that right. I do have a little bit of difficulty getting this to work sometimes. Okay, got the girl onto the low ground. Now I want to get her back on the high ground, which is much trickier. Got it. Okay. Now if the boy will get unstuck, then I can move the girl on, and now I can complete the rest of the Grand Palace backwards. That is my goal here. And let's see, I want... I did not immediately hit that wolf, so from experience I know that I probably want to balloon him now. I'm going to get the girl to be scared of the wolf, and since the boy is still invisible, I get a very long period of time instead of just a short one for LIAIs to walk through walls whenever I stab a whip pole. So that's what I did there. And now I need the boy to be visible again because he's going to be fighting. Now I've pressed those buttons, which is sufficient for the game to think that I have now completed the Grand Palace. And now I can just move on to Snapdragon. This skips the Coral Reef area. It skips the subway system, and it also skips the majority of the Grand Palace. So doing this section of skips has removed a very big portion of the game. I'm not sure if the sprite hit there. I don't think he did. Snapdragon does not have very much health. Okay, and we're through. Coming up next is Hexus. Hexus is a complicated boss, and I know Yawgmoth really likes how she works, so go ahead and talk about Hexus, Yawgmoth, if you want.
Oh, nice. Alrighty. Hexus is one of those bosses that has a lot more to her than initially meets the eye. So she actually has 4 different possible forms and one that is impossible to reach because, well, programming not so great. Depending on how far away you are with your party and in which direction, she will actually change appearances. Here, Crow makes sure to not be too far away from her, so she keeps her initial physical appearance, since that will make sure that the girl is completely protected from anything that Hexus can throw at the girl by just using a barrel. Since Hexus in that form, the regular form, does not use any magic spells, that means she will never actually be able to hurt the girl at all. Ordinarily, she has essentially a pulsing aura around her, which holds pygmies and engulfs your characters in flames and deals a ton of damage. You kind of want to avoid that, and AI-controlled characters just love to stay near Hexus to get hit pretty often. Although right now it looks pretty good, so that's nice. Either way, bosses
I'm actually
always
slightly worried right now. The boy and the sprite have both moved too far down. I want to bring them back up. It looks like the sprite has moved up, but yeah, the boy may be in danger.
Yes, this can be a bit tricky at times, to say the least. Also important to note is that Hexus, or bosses in general, target the character that is closest to them with their spells. So that is why he is basically tanking Hexus, with the girl just being in the barrel standing next to him. So Hexus also, as mentioned, she has 3 other forms that she can have: a fire form, earth form, and a water form, depending on whether you stand top left, top right, or straight above or far enough away for her to change form. But this was actually overall pretty decent, I would say. Nice.
Yeah, things got scary at one point, but it worked out because Hexus faced her tail in the preferred direction. If Hexus moved her tail to the other side, then the boy would have been hit, and that would have taken him out of the equation.
Also, real quick, a weird glitch that can happen on Hexus: if she basically hugs the left wall, she is considered on high ground, which means very often she can no longer be hit with physical attacks, which makes the fight kind of awkward. Since even if she goes back to the right, you need to hit her with a spell first in order to unlock her from that stance. It's really strange how it sometimes glitches off.
So I need to practice Lumina in order to deal damage to Buffy down the line. So I'm just going to do that now while I'm waiting for Mech Rider 3 to join me down here. Mech Rider 3's AI is really bad. First of all, it does not understand how to hit my party when they are on the very bottom of the screen. He's always trying to move to the same horizontal plane where I am, but since I'm on the bottom of the screen and he's kind of floating, he cannot actually reach my level, so he just wanders back and forth trying to reach me and never succeeds. Also, every time I hit him, he's going to try to counterattack. First, he counterattacks by buffing himself with Wall, then he counterattacks by buffing himself with Speed Up. Unfortunately, Speed Up bounces off of the wall that he already put up. which means that he never actually gets speed up, so he just keeps casting it more and more, and until eventually he just runs out of MP. If he somehow gains the speed up buff, or if you gave him a different buff yourself, then he would switch to his final counterattack, which is like Diffusion Beam or Disruptor Beam or something like that. And that attack is actually very strong, so it's pretty convenient that that does not happen. I'm also casting a couple of extra Lucid Barriers each time Mech Rider crosses in front of me, because if Mech Rider is walking through your party members while they're trying to do their overcharge, the party members will kind of freak out and release their attack early and deal almost no damage. So that's just a minor optimization there, and it's also a annoying detail that just does not exist in the multiple controller run. Alright, and that was an acceptable Mech Rider 3 fight. Depending on how many times he dodges, since his HP pool is just so giant, this fight can either take a very long time or not very long at all. Next up, I'm supposed to head to the Pure Lands, but it turns out I have access to a glitch that Yagamoth put together for getting past the Mana Fortress barrier. But before I get there, I guess I should do this one step at a time. Before I start doing that, I am going to pick up the Neko equipment. This does cost me around 2 minutes, but for marathon safety, this is definitely worth it. Neko's equipment is almost every bit as good as the super rare equipment that you can farm off of the enemies inside the Mana Fortress itself. So this stuff is just really good. I am going to leave the girl with the magic boosting equipment I had purchased in the Gold City. But as far as everything else, I will be using... I'm going to go ahead and... No, actually I shouldn't. I was thinking about restocking 2 walnut slots there, but I don't think that's correct. So I'm not going to. I will put the gauntlets onto the boy on this right. Everyone gets a body armor upgrade. And now I will take much less damage from things. I'll wait for the MP, and now I will head off to the Lofty Mountains. I'm going to do 2 glitches at once in order to skip the Mana Fortress. The first is that I am going to attack a whip pull after I have called Flammy. This is going to cause the event where the game checks whether you should jump over a gap with the whip pull. That event is going to happen after I land on the Mana Fortress, and it's going to happen instead of the check as to whether you should be allowed in the Mana Fortress at all. In order to do that, though, I need a level 2 boomerang attack, and I don't have level 2 boomerang experience. There's a whip pull up to the north that you can't really see here. That was too far up, so I wasn't able to pause in time. But I did what we call the weapon grafting glitch, where during the green numbers, I told the boy to swap which weapon he had equipped. And this caused the game to change which weapon he actually has equipped. So he actually has the sword, and you'll see even right now, he still has the sword on. But it used the animations for the boomerang, which allowed me to do the level 2 charge attack animation for the boomerang and hit the whip pull after I called the flaming drum. It's just an interesting coincidence that this works. I had previously tried a lot of different projectile attacks, and none of them worked to do exactly this glitch. But Yagama came in and he was just trying stuff with the boomerang, and he happened to try the level 2 boomerang attack. And it just so happens that that is the only attack that can hit the whip pull in time for a one-controller speedrun. So that enabled the one-controller run to skip the Pure Lands, which very significantly changed what we did and did not need to do to prepare for the late game. Here we go.
So yeah, ordinarily you're supposed to complete the Pure Lands, which has something like, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 8 bosses in it, which a lot of them are really difficult, if not just kind of ridiculous to try and use overcharge attacks on with AI-controlled overcharge attacks. So you would level up a lot more magic along the way as well, with different elements on top of that.
Yeah, the challenge of determining which elements to level up and which ones not to was something that we kind of liked, and so there is now a subcategory for one controller that's called One Controller All Bosses, where you have to go out and defeat all the bosses in the game, rather than just needing to beat the game. So that's a thing now, although I don't actually know if the record for that is even highlighted right now, so it might be a little tricky to try to learn that category if you're interested, but it is there. I'm going to take a little break here to level up Lumina a bit. I want Lumina to be level 2 before I head into Buffy. This should be close enough, I think. Level 1 Loosened Beam is not going to deal particularly much damage to Buffy, but level 2 is pretty good. So this fight is going to take around 2 minutes, whereas if I had to use the weapon overcharge glitch, because Buffy spends so much time invincible, and because he just deals so much damage in general, it is seriously a 10-minute fight to try to take out this guy with only the overcharge. So instead, I'm going to be using magic.
Indeed, the 10-minute fight, unless you get ridiculously lucky, which can happen, but it's just not reasonable to hope for it, I guess.
Thanatos is also weak against Lumina, so I will be using Loosened Beam against him as well, just because I've already leveled it up. But Weapon Charge Glitch against Thanatos isn't so bad. I think you did manage to get the headbang to sort of work against Thanatos with one controller one time.
Yes. I'm not sure that's reliable, but
Probably not.
It just kind of works somehow. I'd rather not try.
Yeah, so the headbang is something that you'll likely be able to see if you tune in and watch Yagamoth's multiple controller run on Tuesday. And it's a AI loop that you get Thanatos stuck in. And Thanatos is the third of the 4 bosses in the Mana Fortress here. I'm pretty sure this was overkill, actually. And I'm worried that the girl's not going to get MP here. Okay, she's fine. I think I cast 3 more Loosened Beams than were required. But whatever, it's not a huge loss.
Make sure she's extra dead, and I think that's okay.
Make sure what?
Extra dead. Kill him.
Okay, so the next boss will be Dread Slime. Dread Slime is the reverse of Blind Slime, which I allegedly fought in order to get the Shade element. Appropriately enough, Shade is what Dread Slime is weak against. Since I never fought Lime Slime, that means that I don't have Shade available, so I must defeat Dread Slime using the Overcharge glitch. If my party winds up getting stuck in Dread Slime's goo and winds up split up to a degree that my AIs no longer are interested in fighting the Dread Slime anymore and they stop charging their overcharges, then that would actually cause the game to be unwinnable for me. So I need to make sure that that does not happen, and the way that I do that involves getting my party stuck in a corner. So I move the party up here. I also need to protect the girl. If the girl takes damage, she could get stuck. She could get knocked away, and if that happens, then that would eventually allow my party to split up enough that it would no longer keep fighting. So, like, there, whenever the girl takes damage from Acid Rain, I need to swap through my whole party, which unfortunately interrupts all of my weapon charge glitches. So each time that happens, that winds up costing me a fair amount of time, and that's just a bunch of RNG I'm going to have to deal with. I accidentally used the mallet only once. I can use the Midge mallet to cancel damage. If there's a spell being cast, then I can use the mallet, and that will make the damage just not occur. You can also do that with candy or a fairy walnut or pretty much any restorative item, and it just happens to be the case that the mallet is considered a healing item. Okay, at this point I think I need to start focusing to make sure I don't mess up this fight any further, because the girl's started inching down, so I'll let Yakima take over commentary.
Alrighty, also, one thing to mention, the Dread Slime centers in between, in the middle of all the characters, and I think what I noticed recently is that he casts his Acid Rain spell always on the character that is furthest away. What kind of happens there is that because he is centering himself in the middle of all characters, he essentially oscillates between the two characters that are just kind of first away. In this case, the sprite and the girl, and just randomly chooses to Acid Rain on the girl or the sprite usually. At least I think that's how it works, but that's kind of theoretical. Either way, I'm not sure if you mentioned that, you use Luna to ensure that you hit critical attacks every single time with both the sprite and the boy, which pretty much ensures that Red Slime takes the maximum amount of damage from the overcharge attacks. Ordinarily, he has enough defense to reduce the damage to, I don't know, 700, 800. So he increases the damage by quite a bit by just guaranteeing critical attacks via Luna's spells. Luna's guarantee is at level 0, 1 critical hit on the next attack, at level 1 is 2 critical hits, etc. So that is also a big reason as to why he even got Luna in the first place. So the physical attacks are that much more, well, that much stronger.
Yeah, I used Luna near the start of the fight, but I stop as the fight continues. Reason being that near the start of the fight, my characters have to be huddled up really close to the Dread Slime. As the fight progresses, I inch away a bit. Whenever my characters are huddled up close, they will sometimes freak out and attack early. And if I have the critical hit buff on them, then that becomes much more likely to work. And I'm getting ludicrously bad luck here. Dread Slime has like a 30% or something chance of dodging each time I'm attacking here. And he's dodged like 8 attacks in a row now. Okay, that's 1 hit. 1 more should kill him. Another fun detail about Dread Slime, but unfortunately not one we'll get to make use of today, is that if you attack him with a elemental spell, he will counterattack with that same spell for most attacks. There are a few spells that he doesn't do that with, but most of them he does. Okay, finally he's down. Dread Slime is a very big random point of the run, which is inconvenient since he's so late into the run. But just based on how much he dodges and how much he casts Acid Rain, the fight can take much longer or much shorter. This was a pretty slow one. This was slow by like 2 minutes compared to my average or something like that. Oh, I forgot to bring up a full screen menu, which does away with most, not all, but most of the level up messages. So this is the final segment of the Mana Fortress now. This is where the hardest enemies of the game can be found, including Master Ninjas and Terminators and such. If you want to farm up comically powerful armor that is comically as in like only 1 or 2 points better than the stuff you bought from Neko anyway, then this is where you do that. This is also the best place to grind up experience if for some reason you want to grind up your experience level. The Terminators are these gold knight enemies, and they have a minimum range on their attacks, so if you just push one, then your AIs will stay far enough back that they don't take damage from it, and you are so close that you don't take damage either. So, ironically, the safest way to handle those Terminators is to just literally push directly into them. I got a little unlucky with the sprite getting spells cast on him. Oh well. This is too many Terminators, so I will show them a bit of respect. They do hit hard if they manage to land a hit. So the girl has spent some amount of magic. I'll go ahead and restore that. I'm actually right on the border of whether I need to restock my walnuts or not. I'm going to keep using walnuts until I've gone down to just my last set of walnuts, and then I'll decide at that point whether I need to restock them or not. My guess is I probably should. So this is Thanatos. You can see that there's a bunch of plot that you probably missed from the original intended version of the game here, because apparently Dialog was born in the shadow of darkness and raised in the power of light, and something about a dragon, I don't know. Anyway, Thanatos wants his body because he believes that if he's in Dialog's body, he'll be able to rule the world. So Dialog tells the boy to take care of the girl, which of course means he's committing suicide. And then Thanatos tries to take over your body, so you fight him. As long as I don't mess up here, Thanatos should not get to take any actions. But his AI is kind of interesting. He alternates between physical and magical attacks. So, the physical attacks are usually things that apply a status ailment of some kind, like Balloon Ring and Petrified Beam and stuff like that. And then his list of magic spells is really huge. You can cast almost any spell in the game. Another thing he can do is become invisible and then kind of burrow himself into the ground. Whenever that happens, he is only vulnerable to physical attacks whenever he sticks his head up. There's a way you can get that state stuck in a loop. We call that the headbang glitch. Well, it's not even a glitch, actually. It's allowed even in glitch lists if you want to. But other interesting features of this boss include that he has 6 HP, and that his music is awesome. I don't think that shows up in the stats for the game anywhere, but it's certainly true. It's my favorite track, anyway. At the end of this fight, I'm going to get Mana Magic back. Allegedly, I have Dryad at this point in the game, and allegedly Dryad's most powerful spell, Mana Magic, which revives the Mana Sword, has been sealed. I never actually met Dryad, ever, because I never rose the Sunken Continent. I sunk the Sunken Continent after not having risen it in the first place, so that's a little weird. But because I skipped that whole event, I also did not get Dryad initially, but when you get Mana Magic here, I actually just got the entire list of Dryad spells. So if the sprite, for whatever reason, wanted to cast Burst, now he has the ability to do that. So coming up is going to be a series of glitches to set up for the Mana Beast fight, and I'll let Yakumoth take that while I focus on not messing up.
Alrighty, first of all, we will want to use the Mana Sword in the final fight, which means he will want to actually cast Mana Magic onto the boy's sword with both the sprite and the girl. Ordinarily, that magic actually will run out after a certain amount of time, because, well, the boy cannot actually hold the mana sword for too long. I'm not entirely sure. You're supposed to level up Dryad to a higher level so the mana sword lasts for longer instead of just reverting back to the old sword, so to speak. And the reason why we want to use the mana sword is because it has a 100% chance to hit, which is much better than just a 70% chance, so that's absolutely worth just getting. What he did is cast both the Mana Magic with the girl and the sprite in a way where the sprite just finished casting the magic while the screen was fading out when he went into this cutscene. So he skipped that little animation cutscene, and now he's also going to cast an elemental saber onto the sword, which allows him then subsequently to keep the Mana Sword forever and just also trade it over to, well, other characters if necessary. Although I think in this category that is not being used. But now the boy has an infinite Mana Sword, which will deal a tremendous amount of damage. So that is very handy. Also, I think in the fight he is going to be buffing up both the sprite and the boy with Lunar Boost, and also the
just Moon Energy once the fight begins in earnest. But right now I'm using Lunar Boost just because it's a faster spell to cast in order to practice Luna. The AI characters tend to waste a charge of Moon Energy on a initial swing before they start charging up. So because of that, I want to have a level up on the Moon Energy before I start using it, and I think I got it there. I didn't hear the audio cue initially, but I have it now, so here we go.
Okay, that makes sense.
So the Mana Beast does not need to be attacked with the Mana Sword. Any attack that deals at least 450 or so damage will break through his defense. It just so happens that it is a little difficult to deal the Mana Beast any damage without the Mana Sword normally, because the Mana Sword is so much stronger than everything else.
Also because the Mana Beast has 450 defense, that means 999 minus 450 is usually the normal damage numbers, unless he guarantees critical hits with Luna. So essentially Luna allows him to deal pretty much double the damage compared to what he would normally deal with his regular attacks if he just attacks. So that kind of halves the amount of hits he needs in order to defeat the Mana Beast, which has almost 10,000 HP, as in has 10 less HP than 10,000. So in theory, exactly 9,999 damage hits will actually kill the Mana Beast, since it has exactly 9,990 HP. And outside of that, while the Mana Beast is just flying from right to left and then flying towards the party, he cannot hit the Mana Beast at all, so he just needs to wait. That is what we call cycle. And he also casts magic in particular intervals, in order to just completely avoid taking damage from the attacks from the Mana Beast. The first one he shields with Lucid Shield, I think, which allows him to not take damage from the Fireborn in the first place, and Lucid Barrier on top of that then also just protects him straight up from the second attack, because the second attack that is also a bit weaker, so it does not break through the Lucid Barrier, which just absorbs a certain amount of physical damage. I think the most interesting part about this... That's the Mana Beast up a little, I love this.
Yeah, I just did an unnecessary glitch there. It'll be, it's a graphical glitch that'll be fixed as soon as I bring up a full screen menu, which I already have. But if you bring up a full screen menu while the game is trying to load new graphics for a boss, then those graphics don't load properly, and you get the jumbled mess that you saw at the start of that cycle there.
Pretty awesome. I was really kind of shocked when Pro just told me, hey, open up a full screen menu with after the Mana Beast flies in. Just kind of, okay. That was amazing.
In general, I'm prioritizing keeping moon energy on the boy rather than both the boy and the sprite, because the boy's attacks always hit, but the sprites do not. And if I cast too much moon energy, that winds up tying up my ability to command my characters to do the overcharge. Because anytime I'm casting, I'm not able to bring up menus, and it turns out that whenever you're using the overcharge to do most of your damage, the main measure of how quickly you can deal damage is how frequently you're able to bring up menus. So it should just be a few more hits once the Mana Beast returns once again. It looks like I'm not running up too close to my estimate, so I'll go ahead and go for the graphical glitch one more time here, if I can pull it off. Yep, there we go again. Again, this will go away as soon as I bring up the full screen menu again.
I think one of the most interesting things is that the glitchless run probably has the fastest Mana Beast fight, just because of how stuff works out.
Yeah, there's a interesting feature that the game doesn't tell you about, where the more weapon experience the boy has, the more damage the transformed Mana Sword gets. So in the glitchless run, we take the time out to farm up a lot of weapon experience so that we can just use basic sword swings, and those deal constant 999 damage swipes. But that is it. We have defeated the Mana Beast, and that is the end of the speed run. The time shown there is a little bit faster than the actual time because I started my clock about 1 minute and 40 seconds late. But still, my estimate was 2 hours 45 minutes. I'm certainly within that. And the world record for reference is right around 2 hours 30 minutes. It's less than a minute faster than that. So thanks a lot for watching one controller Secret of Mana speedrun. I'm excited that this was able to be shown on a marathon, because usually only the multiple controller run shows up. Yagamoth will be bringing a multiple controller run sometime on Tuesday, I think it is, and I'll be joining him for commentary there. And thanks for watching, and I hope you'll give me a follow as well, and I hope to see some of you whenever I stream this game and other games in the future.
So yeah, that was a very solid run, I have to say. Just kind of, I'm pretty sure that is faster than my time by a fair margin. So very nice.
All right, thank you so much, Crow and Yagamoth. Links in the chat to follow those guys. Like they said, Secret of Mana will return later on in the marathon. I liked having this as our opener for the marathon. Secret of Mana is a gem of the Super Nintendo, and represents it's not quite an RPG, action RPG. Tons of great RPGs on the Super Nintendo. I think it's a perfect fit.
So yeah, thank you for having us.
Oh, we gotta see what kind of moon we get, right?
Oh, yes. I don't know if we have enough time to wait through the entire credits, but if we do, at the end of the credits, the game randomly generates a star field and randomly picks a phase of the moon to put into that star field. So, a tradition that we have in Secret of Mana speedrunning is, after we're done with the run, everyone in chat posts their guess for what the moon phase is going to be. The options are either a full moon, or a crescent moon, or a waxing gibbous moon, which we also call 3/4 moon. Either term is fine. So if you want to participate in that, go right ahead. And even if we wind up having to cut to the next run before we get to show the moon, I will at least come in and to chat and tell you what it was.
I'm going waxing gibbous. It's too fun to say.
Full moon.
My guess is going to be a waxing gibbous moon. That's the one I always pick, and for whatever reason, it seems like when I do speedruns, I get that more often than the other ones. We actually do not know what causes the moon phase to be what it is. The moon phase is not affected by any of the usual RNG values that this game uses. The game usually has a RNG for all of the damage rolls and all of that kind of thing, and the game also has an RNG for deciding what the boss is doing, and that is a separate RNG that only rolls during boss fights. So Neither of those is used, so we have not the slightest clue what affects the moon phase. Stinger PA, who's another runner of this game, claims to be able to look at the Banner Beast RNG and determine it, but I am very skeptical.
You can see the code. That would help in a lot of other games, a lot of other speedruns. It's a shame his talents are focused to such a isolated incident.
Yeah, speaking of looking into code, I think I should give a shout out to HHS. He is a person on Cat Videos who has done a lot of digging into many of the arcane features in Secret of Mana, and a lot of the glitches that I'm using during this run were in part inspired by me just kind of digging through his lists of how things work and thinking, oh, for example, in the wall glitch, I saw, oh, actually there's a maximum range that the wall is allowed to bounce spells off of. Can I arrange my party so that only the character I want to kill gets hit? And it turns out I could. Because prior to that point, we were just hitting a target with wall and just hoping that it bounced on the target we wanted to kill. And if it didn't, we were saving the target with the Midge Mallet and just trying again until we had enough experience. It took forever, and now the setup is way better. So just lots of little details like that have been helped out a lot by the efforts of HHS. He also helped us hunt down the glitch that we use for what we call magic percent, which is the arbitrary game end glitch, which finishes the game in about 10 minutes or so and conjures up the end screen. That glitch is kind of tricky, kind of involved, and you don't actually complete much of the game. So not too many people run it, but again, we have the TAS guys to thank for that. Even though there isn't actually a recent TAS of this game, we still have a lot of things to thank them for. And
Yeah,
we're
there's
about to get the moon phase now.
Oh yeah? Wait for it.
Yeah! Yeah, I don't know why I get this one so often, but for whatever reason, whenever I play, I pretty frequently get the 3/4 moon. Not all the time, so it's not completely consistent, but there we go.